All right. So we call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals for Wednesday, July 28th, 2021 for the city of Easthampton. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are following the remote guidelines set forth by the state and the city. By way of administrative items, do we have any correspondences, requests for comment from other boards or committees?
No.
That would be no. And do we have anyone here from the public who's interested to speak to the board regarding an item that is not currently on the agenda? And I'm saying no there. We have the minutes from the January 27th, April 28th, and June 23rd meeting. Is there anyone?
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Lindsay with a second. All in favor by show of hands for those that attended the meeting. Okay, so we so pass. All right, so then the next one is the continuation of the June 23rd hearing for Gerald and Jeanette Vautrin seeking a variance under section 13.1 of the Easthampton Zone Ordinance with regard to the eastern side setback requirements to extend the existing single-family structure on the property. Subject property is located at 72 East Street in the residential rural C R35 zone.
CR?
It's a rural C.
Okay.
Rural 35. So, Mr. Vautrin.
Okay, so where we left off last, there was a question on the southeast pin. I had not been able to get an independent survey, but what I did was I was able to get Holmberg and Howe here, who did the original survey for Kestrel, and I had them along with the gentleman from Kestrel. I slipped his name, slipped me. It was here. Stuart, I'm sorry.
Yep. Hi there.
Sorry, Stuart.
No worries.
He was a great guy. I shouldn't have forgot his name. Anyway, so he was here, and so we had these two pins. If you see in the picture, these two stakes were put in to where my garage could be at the maximum without encroaching on Kestrel land. This was agreed upon by Stuart. He said he had no problems with this. And so we're here to move on with it. We've downsized the garage to 22 feet to accommodate this line.
Okay.
Should I add the perspective from Kestrel now, or does the board have any questions?
I have comments, so I'll wait until commissioners can comment.
Okay. So I guess, whereas, you are directly affected, it's a bizarre scenario because we typically don't ask the abutters to comment during the application period. However, their driveway goes on your property. It seems to be, for lack of a better term, a very close relationship. So if you could comment, sir, it would be appreciated.
Sure. So I'd just like to, I agree with what Jerry said. We were out there and agreed that the two stakes that are set in the plan you're seeing are the property line. Kestrel agrees with that. And as long as the Vautrins maintain their, 1.4 foot from the line, then Kestrel has no objections with this plan as it's proposed. I'd like to just remind the board that while Kestrel Land Trust owns this property, the city of Easthampton does hold the conservation restriction on this property as well. So the city has a real property interest here as well. And let's see, just two other items that I had discussed with Jerry while we were out there. One was that we agreed that no fill or construction materials would be on the Kestrel lands during or after the construction project. And I believe, Jerry, you agreed to that. So really, we're thinking of this as like, there's not going to be an impact on the Kestrel land. All the construction will be happening on the boat trains lands. And then the last thing was we were hoping for just periodic status updates. Like before construction begins, we just like to be notified so that we would have the opportunity to visit the site and just and see it as the construction's happening.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. So otherwise, we're good with this. We have no objections to this plan as it's proposed.
Okay, I will, if I could just, a couple observations that I have regarding this. The addition of a 22-foot garage, is that going to be a single 18-foot or 16-foot garage door, or is it going to have two doors?
There'll only be one garage door and just an access door to go in and out.
Okay. And
So
then,
Where will the access door be? Will you have to go on Kestrel property?
No, if you look on the left side of the drawing, there's a little break in the front wall. That would be the left door right there where he's got that boxed. That's where the door goes. And then the right break is the garage door.
so if you put the garage door on that side, you're going to have access via a driveway. And that driveway, in theory, if a garage is 16 feet deep, you need 16 feet in front of the garage to get yourself parallel, square, and pull into the garage.
Okay, well, if that's an issue, I can switch them around so that the garage door would be on the left and the door would be on the right, and that would eliminate that.
Okay, I think that may work in your favor in that you can, it's also going to make your driveway an easier thing to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that being a challenge to be able to gain access into that garage without additional access or encroachment onto the Kestrel property.
Correct.
Via the right-of-way you currently have.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Okay. So is there any other board member that has questions, thoughts,
Yes.
concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have serious reservations about this because there is no hardship. The applicant has a house and an attached two-car garage. He just wants more garage space. I live in an Easthampton neighborhood that has lots of 50s houses, some without garages, a few, like I have a one-car garage. I know a bunch of my neighbors would love more garage space, but I know my neighbors across the street, they've spoken to me because they know I'm the ZBA. Jamie told them they could not add a garage because it didn't comply with the setbacks. And there are lots of people who would like a garage. There's no hardship. He has a garage. And if he takes a wheelbarrow out of this new garage, he can't even walk around the side of his garage with the wheelbarrow and stay on his property. To utilize outside of his garage, he's going to be trespassing. And that's conservation land.
No, because I have the access of all around the other side of my house.
But our regulations specifically say that due to circumstances, well, you have a house and a two-car garage. What are the circumstances that warrant another two-car garage?
I have 4 people living here. We have 6 vehicles. We have no place to put them. So this would be another place to put one of our vehicles. Also, it gives my son a shop to work in.
I have neighbors across the street that have complained to me twice that they could not add a garage to their house when they bought it a few years ago, even though the house right next door is identical to them and has a two-car garage, because the zoning changed and there isn't setback. So they had to put in a shed, which they use for storage. They've mentioned to me a couple times thinking I'm a miracle worker because I'm on the ZBA, which obviously I'm not. So I have a problem with someone just assuming they have 4 people. We need more garage space. You're welcome to drive around my neighborhood and see how many people live in the houses here and don't have a 4-car garage.
Well, one problem that I'm having with your statements is when I spoke with Curtis and I explained to him this whole thing, he said that the Easthampton Planning Board would try to work with us as close as possible so that we could utilize our land as best that we can. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to utilize our land the best we can.
Well, I'm going to disagree with Curtis because that was, to me, an inaccurate statement.
Yeah, I want to represent my state. I want to represent my statements here accurately. The first thing is that we're before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the second thing is that the Zoning Board has every right to consider or deny the application on its merits, and that specifically the Zoning Board of Appeals is making its decision with regard to soil shape and topography.
So if we look at the regulations, the requirements to be able to issue a variance,
Yes.
okay, there are 4 stipulations, and they are, it has to be on a certain piece of property. It has to be as a result of topography, geography, geographic concerns. There has to be a hardship. And I'm sorry, I don't have the link here in front of me, Curtis. If you could just let me know the 4th one.
One sec. I'll pull it up. Give me just a second.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How much of the driveway in front of the new garage will overlap over the line?
None of it.
None of it?
None of it.
So we're just going to hover right on that line?
Yes.
But isn't the driveway going to be on an awkward angle? And, you know, like John said, getting your car in and out, it probably would help if you moved the garage doors some.
Well, we did. We said we would move the garage door to the left.
Why can't you build a detached garage behind your deck?
Linda, our position is not to tell people what to do. Our position is simply to look at what they've presented and approve or disapprove.
I disagree with, I've never seen that in the regulations.
I'd like to answer Linda's question. Because of the narrow size of my lot, as it shrinks, it's a piece of pie. It's wider in the front than it's smaller in the back. If I was to put a garage next to my deck, I couldn't get it 20 feet against Mr. Corella's property behind me. I couldn't fit it between Corella's property and Kestro's property because I wouldn't have 20 feet on either side. So I can't put it anywhere else. I've already tried to figure this out. I would love to stick it in the back here. I can't.
Then my opinion is you can't have a 4-car garage.
Well,
I'm not asking for a 4-car garage. I'm asking for a 3-car garage with a shop.
okay.
I want to respond to the question posed by the chair, and I also want to ask the board for order reasons to, when they conclude a statement, then say that, you know, invite commentary back from a member of the public if they want it. Hypothetically, we have 1 board comment period and 1 public comment period. I'm fine recording them all as separate, but the crosstalk will get a little busy. The other thing I wanted to say was the 4 conditions that that the board is required to find for section 1313, the required findings are: the variance must be with respect to a particular parcel of land. Second condition, the second finding, there must be circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, or topography, especially affecting such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it's located. 3, literal enforcement of the ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant. And 4, there will not be substantial detriment to the public good or nullification or substantial derogation from the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
So under that, my neighbors across the street should be able to come in and get a variance.
And Linda, they have every right to ask for a variance.
But there have to be standards. If we have regulations, this gentleman has a 2-car garage. They don't have any garage. A lot of my neighbors have no garages. They would like garages.
Linda, there's nothing in any law or bylaw that states that someone should be allowed to have 1 car, no car, a 3-car garage.
Other than the zoning regulations, which it's our job to enforce.
Our job.
That's how we differ.
Well, and that's how we differ. Jamie.
Can I give a little background about the reason why we have variances and the point of them? Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, so when the state when the state allowed municipalities to adopt zoning, there were a lot of non-conforming lots that were created as a result of creating new zoning. In order to protect the property rights of the owners of property, the state came up with this idea of the variance that would allow the municipalities to grant a variance to a condition that's making the use of their property, that means that the city would be illegally taking the rights of the property owner. The standard has been that if the property owner is able to develop a single family house, that the city has not taken the property rights of that owner. We have extended that to include garages and decks and things like this, but a denial of a variance only results in a illegal taking of property when it extinguishes all use of that land, such that the city has illegally taken without compensation by virtue of zoning. If that makes sense, it's a little long-winded.
Thank you, Jamie.
So the discussion about whether or not someone can have a garage, or if some people have a 2-car or 1-car or 4-car, is sort of besides the point. If the applicant is able to show that they have a unique circumstance related to soil, shape of land, or topography, then and that the granting of the variance would resolve that unique hardship, then they are entitled to the variance. And then that's for the board to decide whether or not the hardship is unique, whether or not the hardship is going to be resolved by grant of the variance, whether or not there are other ways to problem solve how to do what the applicant's trying to do that don't result in the grant of the variance.
Thank you for that clarification, Jamie. Okay. So if we look at the site map that was presented, it very much matches the existing, the GIS information is available online. Obviously what was originally proposed by way of a 32-foot garage has been reduced to a 12-foot garage, or 22-foot garage as a result of a revised survey. And the applicant has been more than understanding that that's where the line is, and has agreed with Kestrel Land Trust. Obviously, and I don't know whether we should get any sort of commentary or anything from the city, or Curtis or Jamie, are you representatives of the city in this respect?
As with every application for public hearing, I did put this out to all the departments of the city, including a representative of the Conservation Commission, for any comments from them. The reply that I basically got was, make sure Kestrel Land Trust as duly notified as an abutter, and Kestrel received their abutter notification in the mail, and that's how they got aware of the project. No other city department opined that they had an interest that needed to be represented in this meeting.
Okay.
And I will speak to the fact that as the city is a holder of an easement on this land, the city has a proactive responsibility to patrol this easement and make sure that there's no encroachments on it by abutters, and that make sure that the Kestrel Land Trust is doing their responsibility on their property. So as far as the easement goes, as long as the Vautrains stay on their land, the city is not concerned with the easement or with violating the easement. there could be other, zoning related things that the city has concerns about, but that's your board's responsibility.
I have a question.
Curtis, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the garage and where it is. The problem I have is with what Mr. Votrain said, that he needs a shop for his son. Well, a shop isn't a garage. A shop is a business or whatever it is. I don't see how you can have a shop there. Building a garage is one thing, but having a shop there, that's a totally different thing, isn't that?
Well, I don't mean a shop as far as business. I mean a shop where he would have his tools or his vehicles and things like that. There'd be room. I mean, it's only a 10-foot section of the garage, so it's very small.
So it's not for a lawnmower or small engine repair?
Actually, no, he's no longer doing that. He works for GNS Industrial now, so he's no longer doing that. We're trying to alleviate all that.
I hope so.
I have a question for Mr. Votrain.
Sure.
If you were done, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Tony, were you done? I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, great. So my question is, you were talking about I know you were talking about why you couldn't put the proposed addition off your deck, but I just wanted to clarify that the reason that you can't put it there is because it also wouldn't comply with the setback around the garage there too.
Anywhere I would put any piece of property that I could, or building that I would try to build behind my deck would be cause I'd have to get a variance for it, no matter where I put it.
Right.
Why?
Because it's very narrow.
Because it doesn't fit the setback requirements.
Correct.
Not according to the
understanding.
diagram you submitted.
I think it might be possible to put, I haven't done an exhaustive analysis, but if it kept the facade, the current building location, then it's eligible for a special permit for pre-existing non-conforming use. It only needs the variance if it's extending, if it's creating a new nonconformity. But if it's continuing a nonconformity, the board has always found that that qualifies for the pre-existing nonconforming special permit.
As long as the nonconformity does not increase. Right. So if you look at the distance from the rear, we'll call it the southwest corner of the property to the property line abutting Tony Corella, that line parallel with the property line, and you draw a line straight, parallel coming back. And then if you look at that doesn't show it. Curtis, could you bring up the GIS data for the?
I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
Just give me a second. We'll look at this for the time being.
But that
it doesn't have. If he just move that square right behind the deck, abutting the driveway, and it's nowhere near the property line.
Well, but Linda, there's an abutment. We have a nonconformity on because it's a triangle piece of property, or it
piece of pie.
The rear. Yeah, it's a pie-shaped piece of property. We have abutters on both sides, and as it goes towards the rear of the property, it gets smaller.
Yeah.
So in looking at that, if it is considered a pre-existing non-conforming structure, go ahead, Chris.
So my original interpretation is that it was not a pre-existing non-conforming structure, and that this application would render it non-conforming, and therefore it's not subject to the special permit per section 11.12B, but is instead required to get a variance. Looking at the structure right now, I think it conforms to the setbacks for the zone, and the garage would break that setback line.
So,
but if he moved the garage right behind the house, abutting the driveway, it's nowhere near the setback. It's less to the setback than the house. I don't know this non-conforming talk.
Well, Linda, that was when there was consideration that it was perceived to be a pre-existing non-conforming, in that corner of the house was closer to, well, and according to that, it's 17 feet. We'll call it 17 feet. So you are, what's the side yard setback in the R35 zone?
20.
So we are non-conforming, so we can be 17 feet as long as we are not less than 17 feet off that side yard setback. It is a continuation of the pre-existing non-conforming. However, question for Curtis and Jamie. Mm-hmm. In the way the ordinance is written, is it a continuation in that the structure itself, as opposed to a new structure that is then being placed non-conforming?
I don't understand you, John, because the garage that he's proposing on the map today will easily fit behind the house, abutting the driveway, and not impact the sidelines. It doesn't create a nonconformity.
Linda, are you saying where the 813 is? Or
No, I'm saying right here. I don't know if you can see my arrow.
Are you saying
Yeah,
off the
right
deck?
there.
right there, right in this green?
Right there.
Yeah.
No
And one
variance
thing I'll
needed,
also-
no special permit.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
And
Please
I'm
go
not,
ahead.
I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into it, but was there any thought given into building behind the existing garage and making it a two-car tandem? I know the shed is there. That could be moved easily over closer to the line. Your driveway as it exists now will bring you right into the garage, but it'll just be a deeper garage. And from what I'm looking at, it looks like it's possible. And you might even be able to make it wider in the back as well. So if you enter the front of your existing garage, your garage would be just twice as deep.
Well, one of the problems is that when there's a hatchway and a window behind the first bay of the back of the garage, so you would have no access to that. And then you'd be blocking the window. You'd have a wall there. Actually, you couldn't do that because, yeah, you'd lose the window in the bathroom.
Well, I mean, it's good.
And then it would also affect the front porch because the railing on the front porch would be there. So, I mean, my wife and I have given this a lot of thought, and this is where we would like to put the garage, is where we're asking for the variance. If I was to put it in behind my deck, one of the reasons we moved to Easthampton was because it was a beautiful city, and we have the access to the M&M Trail from our backyard, and we have a beautiful view in our backyard. And I know that Linda may say, well, not everybody has beautiful views in their backyard, and that may be so. We had breakfast this morning. We had deer running through our yard. We can see up into the woods. It's very beautiful. So why would I want to put a garage to block all that when I have a place that I can put it, and that my abutting neighbor has agreed that I can put it there?
Because it doesn't comply with the regulations, and we make everybody else comply with the regulations. That's a basic tenet of zoning. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean you can do something.
Well, that's why he's asking for a variance.
I know, but I don't think there's a hardship because he has a two-car garage.
The existence, the hardship, is the hardship that he needs the garage, or is the hardship that because of the terrain of the property, he can't put it anywhere else on the property?
I think Jamie's explanation answered that question.
And we have different interpretations of what Jamie said then.
So to clarify, it has always been my reading of the law that says there has to be a unique circumstance related to soil shape or topography that creates a unique hardship whereby the relief of that, or the grant of the variance relieves that hardship related to the soil shape or topography. It has nothing to do with garages. So if there was really steep slopes on a property and there was no other place on the property to put what they wanted to do, then the board could grant a variance to that hardship that was created by the fact that the steep slopes don't allow for the applicant to put where the ordinance says they need to. But in this case, the lot, I think what I'm hearing is that there are other places on the property that a garage could go, and the applicant is choosing not to utilize those locations. So, but the hardship has nothing to do with one car, 2 cars, 3 cars. It has to do with the soil shape, topography, and whether or not they can. The ordinance is forcing them to build on that place where they cannot physically build.
And have a reasonable use of their property. That's key. Everyone has a right to a reasonable use.
Now, as far as my property goes, in the front, if you can look at it where in the picture it says 0.813 AC, okay, there's about anywhere from 15 to 20 feet of grass there. But if you see where the number is number 63, that drops off. So that makes it a hardship as far as multiple different places to put things. I mean, that land there is useless to me because it drops a good 15, 20 feet down to the next level till I get to the street level.
Okay, Curtis, you've had your hand up patiently for a while.
So there's 2 points that I want to clarify. One, which is the question of whether or not the structure is pre-existing non-conforming, and the other, which is I want to build off of what Jamie's been discussing regarding the definition of a variance. The first regarding pre-existing non-conforming, I'm just going to share, I think what we may be looking at is an artifact of different measurement styles. Jamie pulled up the satellite map. I was working from the GIS map. If you take a look, if I could do this smoothly, there you go. This measures out to be over 20 feet to the property line. But then if you overlay the satellite image, that puts it into the structure. You can see the polygon that just disappeared there and the eave of the house here. If you asked me which of the two was accurate, I wouldn't necessarily know. There's a lot of problems with GIS imagery that we put up. There's a lot of problems with satellite imagery. One of the classic ones being that all images tilt. We're never looking at them directly over them in a perfect aerial polygon. So we could be seeing a list of a couple of feet in one direction that could have warped our perception of the area. In any event, my original judgment runs from the GIS. My measurement was that it was over 20 feet, and as a result, this is not a pre-existing non-conforming, and it's attempting to get a variance to become a non-conforming structure allowed by variance. Then the following up is one point that I want to talk about that I think that multiple people have discussed and I think is worthy of discussion is the fourth criteria of the variance, which is that there's no substantial derogation. There shall not be substantial detriment to the public good or nullification or substantial derogation from the intent and purpose of this ordinance. This is a great two-parter. On the one hand, we're asking whether there's substantial harm to the public good. The applicant we have, by having done abutter notifications, the board by being able to look at the project, and the applicant by having done due diligence can defend whether or not there's abutters who feel like they're going to be substantially aggrieved, and if we, looking at it, think there's going to be people aggrieved. But there's also this portion about the derogation of the ordinance, which is kind of to what Linda was saying earlier. You know, there are other entities in the city there are other people who are governed by setbacks. Would our interest be to grant them all variances if they came before this board? And if so, the best remedy would be to change the zoning ordinance, not to.
If we grant this variance, I'm going to recommend that all my neighbors come in and ask for variances.
Or that your neighbors petition city council to amend the zoning
Well,
ordinance.
no, I think they should ask for variance. It's cheaper, quicker. And if you're saying that this is a variance item, that's fine. But I just don't. We're going to talk about this in nauseam. So I'd like to make a motion to deny the application because I do not believe there is a hardship in the land that warrants a variance.
Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Excuse me, I wanted to ask, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask a question before voting on that. I didn't have a chance to comment.
Once a motion has been made, we need either a second or the motion needs to be withdrawn. Or, maybe Linda, if you could withdraw your motion so we could have more additional conversation.
Sure, I just want to move this along. We're not going to, you and I aren't going to agree.
I'd like to make a comment or two. I was wondering if, since Kestrel had agreed to this, what if the Vautrains were to put up a fence on that line, exactly on the property line, and then they can do whatever they want? Since Kestrel says they don't mind, this is their land. The fence is there, so they're not going to be trespassing on Kestrel land. Would that be something that they would consider?
Kestrel, zoning is not a popularity contest. Like if your neighbors don't object, you get to do something that other people don't. That's my opinion. And that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying, would Mr. Vautrain be open to putting up a fence on the line and then keep the garage to his side of the fence?
If that would move things along, but I don't really think that seems to be the issue here.
Yeah, that doesn't solve the reality, the challenge that the side yard setback for the property is set at 20 feet. He is looking to build a structure 1'4" or roughly 20 inches away from the property line. And
that would only be the front corner, because as the piece moves away, it actually becomes like 5 or 6 feet towards the end.
It is. So the question is whether or not the issuance of a variance is justifiable under Section 1313 of the zoning ordinance. And so that's really where we are. And it is, it looks like, and I think that, Curtis, you bring up an interesting point in that, will approval create substantial derogation from the intent and purpose of the ordinance?
The question in some variances is whether the board broadly feels that anyone applying should get the variance. And if so, the remedy should ultimately be altering the zoning ordinance such that it no longer becomes a question of who has the time, energy, and money to put forward variance applications, but instead becomes an issue in which everybody can enjoy the same liberty to develop their property in the same fashion. If the board believes in all cases that an application to build a garage at this location would be reasonable, regardless of cliffs, regardless of lot's shape, regardless of any of the particulars, then the remedy would be, I know I'm speaking a bunch, let me just conclude this notion. The remedy would be to change the zoning ordinance. If your circumstances of this lot in particular make you believe that, and this application in particular, make you believe that this one uniquely would get a variance, then this is more appropriate for variance.
Okay.
Okay, you didn't change my mind. I'd like to make a motion again, John.
Lindsay, you're muted.
Hold on, Linda.
Sorry,
That's what I'm
muted.
asking.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
The way I'm thinking about this is this garage an issue because of the shape of the property or just the boundary of his property? And if it's just the boundary of his property,
He wants to build a garage that's too big.
Curtis, you're muted.
I did that to myself for the first time. Lindsay, you go ahead and finish your statement, and then John, you pick who's speaking next.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, my question is basically just like, I'm thinking about Linda's neighbors and how if they want to build a garage they can't because it's too close to their side yard setback. And that's basically the situation here. Is he can't build he wants to build a garage in a place that is close to that is too close to the side yard setback. Is that a fair, like accurate?
I don't think it's relevant to start to talk about Linda's neighbors. There's already a lot of, there's this easement with the driveway going on there. So I think there's a special reason why actually the Vautrains do have a bit of a hardship, because they don't even have access without going over the Kestrel land to begin with. So whatever's going on with Linda's neighbors, they should file their own ordinances. I don't think we
could be
even
what
be
you're
discussing
saying could be
that.
Considered a special circumstance.
Well,
so that might entitle to him to a variance.
I think it is.
What I'm trying. Right.
I
that's the point I'm making, is that because if you look at the topography, shape, where the house is located, they have an easement onto the adjacent property to just gain access to their property. As a result, they are already trying to squeeze in there, and it only gets smaller as it goes up. And so are we out of our purview to say, well, it's not ideal, but this is where he wants to put it, and it makes sense. But it's not a carte blanche. And something we need to understand is that by approving one variance, we do not set precedents on every variance.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I've got Jamie, I've got Kurt. Hands just flew up.
I just want to point out that in order to actually write this decision up, the hardship has to be enumerated on, like, what is the actual hardship, not just that there's a vague idea of a hardship, like, and the hardship has to be related to the soil shape topography. So
as a result of the topography and the shape of the property, the location of the garage, is it the only feasible location? And I'm asking that.
Yes.
Well, so what you're looking at is, if you're asking for a variance to the setback requirements, then you have to show that there is no other place on the property that this structure can be built without violating the setback requirements.
So I think that's a request that we have to put back to Mr. Vautrain and say, look, can you show us that you can't put a 22 by whatever size garage anywhere else on that property without a variance? And if I'm saying is that if you can put the garage on the property as you have drawn, 22 foot wide, we'll say 24 feet deep, if you can fit that elsewhere on the property without a variance, then we would deny?
Yes.
Because they don't need the variance if they can fit it on their property. They only need the variance if they can't, and they have to, change that they're somehow forced to build what they want in the setback because that's the only place that's buildable on their property for that structure.
Okay. So I think that at that point, I think we asked Mr. Vautrain.
Hold on. Before you do that, I know that Linda's been waiting to speak for a little bit here.
Your whole conversation, John, assumes that he has the right to build a 4-car garage. That's what I find.
No, it doesn't assume that at all. It assumes that he wants to put an addition on his house. What he uses it for is what he uses it for. If he wanted to put bedrooms out there because he's got more kids, that's okay. He wants to extend his structure.
Okay. Did Mr. Vautrain build this house?
I did.
Is it a one-owner house?
Yes.
Why did you put the driveway on the neighboring property and not get an easement for that until Kestrel bought it?
I had the easement when I built the house because the original owner of the property, who Kestrel bought it from, granted me the easement for the driveway.
But the easement wasn't recorded on the land records until Kestrel bought it 2 years ago.
It's been there for 25 years.
I'll look again. Okay. I thought it looked like it was filed in 2019.
When I bought this property in 1985, the driveway was already there. It had been put in by the original owner.
The driveway, but not the easement. There's a difference.
Well, and Linda, you may see the easement now because there's been a change in ownership. So the easement now reflects.
I know how to read land records, John. Okay, thank you.
So I think this right now comes down to whether Mr. Vautrain could build the garage elsewhere on his property without needing a variance.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So here's my thought. I say we continue the hearing. And Mr. Vautrain, I ask that you look at the size of the addition you're looking to build. Hold on a second. And you see if you can build that size garage someplace else within your property without the requirement of a variance, provided the side yard setbacks do not increase. The side yard setbacks aren't any less than what you currently have with your house. Curtis?
So I'm outside right now, and if you can see behind me, this is my yard. This would
no service.
So you're causing me to take
No.
that I worked so hard to come to Easthampton to have. And you're telling me the only place I could put a garage is in the middle of my yard and ruin my yard. That's what you're telling me.
You have a garage.
Linda, you've made that point a dozen times.
Well, he just said, only place I can put a garage is making the assumption he doesn't have one.
Linda, do you?
He has one.
Okay. I can see this is going nowhere fast, and that's why I'm asking that we continue the hearing and we look at that and we look at a location where it can fit without having a variance. If that's not the case, then we will look at having the variance. Curtis.
Just want to hopefully fast forward that conversation a little bit. The applicant provided a letter with his most recent plan, specifically says, I would like to add a 22 width by 28 depth garage/shop to my existing garage. I picked this location because it utilizes land at the right of my existing garage the best. I'll be able to continue my utilities for my current garage and have access to my home. There is no other suitable place to build this. So the interpretation that the applicant has made is that this is the place that he believes. What I'm trying to say here is that there are multiple different definitions of where else could he build this. You could hypothetically say, yes, the owners could build a different structure elsewhere in the backyard, and we could get into that cyclical argument forever. It basically comes down to a sniff check for the members of the board to say whether or not they truly believe that this is the best solution is a variance. It, unfortunately, even with Jamie's definition, which I largely agree with, I do think the board has latitude regarding hardship. A great example, the previous variance granted by this board for the corner lot shed on Lyman Street considered the clearing of brush a relevant consideration as a hardship that would have prevented its location elsewhere on the property in locations that would not have reached the front setback line. So the board has broad latitude as to what it constitutes a hardship. For Linda, that might be, nothing. I'm not trying to paraphrase your opinion because I genuinely believe this to be the case.
If we approve this variance, I'm hoping that when people come in and ask you and Jamie about building garages and they don't comply with setbacks, you tell each and every one to apply for a variance. That's my point. That's my whole point. And not say they can't do it, which I know Jamie did to my neighbors, but you tell them apply for a variance.
Good.
Well, and Linda, it's every person's right as an owner of a property, if they want to put something on a piece of property that is outside the zoning laws, to appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's why we are here.
But most people don't know that.
Well,
Most
and
people go and ask a cursor, Jamie, and they said, no, those are the setbacks. So they walk out the door.
Well, and what? And
Do you know why the reason I'm here today? Because your building inspector said, contact your zoning committee and tell them what you have, and they'll work with you. And that's why I'm here.
Yep.
Can I make a comment, please?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. Just a comparison between Mr. Voltrain's situation and Linda's situation. With Mr. Voltrain, we know his situation, and again, we have to give him credit that he actually shrunk the size of his garage. But what I think what's going for him is he has a next door neighbor that's willing to work with him. With Linda's situation, there may be people that want a garage, but the other part of that formula is we don't know what their neighbors feel.
Their neighbors are supportive.
We don't know that. We
And
don't
it doesn't.
It doesn't have a situation. It's very hypothetical. We shouldn't even be talking about it. I make a motion to approve Mr. Valtrain's garage on the condition that he builds a fence within 5 feet, extending right on the line in front of the garage and 5 feet back, so it's very clear where that is.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Hold on just a second. So if, I don't know if we can put a stipulation in there, but I don't know if we can put the command, can we put a condition for a fence?
But
I'm getting a head
besides
shake.
that, I also don't even think it's necessary. So I think as a board, we should discuss whether the condition of offense is necessary before we make a motion about it.
Okay.
We can suggest.
I have other conditions that, based on Kestrel's comments, we might want to discuss.
Okay.
Which is the
Would you
comments.
ask Wayne to withdraw his motion the way you asked me to withdraw my motion?
Sure.
Sure. Matt, if you could
Or
kindly
Matt,
withdraw
I'm sorry.
Matt, if you could withdraw your motion for discussion purposes.
Fine.
Lindsay.
Okay. So my conditions that, based on Kestrel's comments, that I think we might want to discuss are whether the condition of no fill or construction material on Kestrel land. I think that might be a condition. It seems obvious, but maybe a condition that we want to include. And the whether, I don't know about this one, the updating Kestrel and an opportunity to visit the site. I don't see why they wouldn't have the opportunity to visit the site because it's their property that's bordering it, but should we require the applicant to update Kestrel?
So
I think the reason he just asked was just as we got things going on, they're busy doing other things too, so they may forget or whatever and say, hey, the foundation's in, would you like to come to see it?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the courtesy he's asking for, which I said fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That's right. We're looking for a notice of, we're going to break ground next week. Foundation's in, come check it out, that sort of thing. Those sort of periodic status updates.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
So I will say that I'm a general contractor. I understand how construction works way too well.
I do not. So.
and 1'4" from a property line is really close. Your foundation hole is probably going to be bigger than that. And you could, if we put up silt fence that mark the property line, it's going to get knocked down. So I think that I'm going to give you, be perfectly honest, is that during the duration of construction, that Kestrel allow a 5-foot access around the location. I'm getting a head shake from Jamie, but only during construction.
I think that would require a new written easement from the city.
Even if it's temporary access?
It would have to be a temporary construction easement. It's possible, but that has to go through City Council Ordinance Committee. But Kestrel can't just give a new easement that is different than what the rights that are already owned by the city.
Okay.
The conservation restriction specifically prohibits the storage or placement of any construction materials on the property, which the city holds that conservation restriction. So I can't just say, sure, that's okay.
To be honest with you, the way you have to see it for yourself, but I mean, it's ready for the most part to put the foundation in place. So there's no, because the property slopes off that way, there's nothing there.
Well, you're still going to have to dig down 4 feet for a frost wall.
It's already down 4 feet.
But you still have to go 4 feet below that for a frost wall. I'm telling you by code.
No, I understand.
4 feet below ground level for a frost wall, and as a result, you're going to dig within 1'4" of that building, of that property line.
And I'm sure that there'll be equipment on over the line as well, digging
for final grading when they go to backfill.
I think that would be very concerning for Kestrel.
That, in looking at this, that is my bigger concern, is the feasibility to build a 22-foot garage or structure within 1'4". Yeah, that's the width of my shoulders. And you have 6 inches of frost wall or footing that's going to extend out beyond the base of that. So now you're down to 1 foot from the property line. They're going to dig a 3-foot trench.
I'm not actually sure how that's going to work because that's actually solid ledge.
Well, then that is something that also needs to be taken into consideration. It's just the feasibility to be able to do what you're looking to do. It's all fine and dandy. We say, sure, go ahead and do it. What's the feasibility of it?
Isn't that his problem?
Is it his problem, the feasibility?
Yeah.
Well, if he has to, by issuance of a variance, would have to limit complete access to the Kestrel property, complete disturbance to the Kestrel property, yeah, it's his problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty straightforward, that you're and that's also part of the reason for the side yard setbacks, is the simple feasibility of being able to work on a piece of property. At what point can you get a ladder up to side that without going on your neighbor's property? There's some serious just feasibility issues of being that close to the property line. I understand you want as big a garage as you can get, and I'm not going to deny that part of it. I'm looking at the feasibility long-term and no access onto the abutting property.
All right, so probably would be best to continue this.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion. Curtis?
Yeah, no, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure multiple people have made motions and have very politely, in order to allow conversation to continue, withdraw those motions. If you as board chair wanted to make a motion, that's absolutely your right. If you as board chair wanted to re-invite them to make any motions, that's absolutely also your right.
Okay. So my thought, and I agree with Mr. Gautrain, that I think we should continue this hearing. So if there's no objection from any other board member, I will make a motion to continue the hearing to our August, whenever meeting. I'd have to bring that up to the agenda. So, yeah, bring it back on the August 18th or the August 25th meeting.
Yeah, I have August 25th.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
At 6
Too
p.m.
many dates at the bottom of the agenda, Curtis. So I make a motion that we continue this hearing to the August 25th, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. So I think you've heard our concerns, Mr. Beltrain, and I want to, I want you to understand that, we're playing by the rules we're given, but I also look at it from a feasibility standpoint.
No, I totally understand.
Okay.
Okay, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Stuart, thank you for putting up with us for so long.
All right, thanks. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm pretty exhausted after that. And
I agree.
In that case,
we're on vacation, and I think we should call the meeting.
there
Make
is.
a motion to adjourn.
There's another agenda item.
The only other agenda item was to discuss the public hearing procedure, and I don't think any of us have that.
I just want to make sure that we notice that before we conclude the meeting. I have no strong emotional connection with that agenda item.
Okay, so motion to adjourn
Second.
has been made and second. We'll see you in August.
Okay.
Thank you.